The year without summer, 1816. Imagine a year where summer never came. No lazy days by the pool, no ice cream, no barbecues, not even a single sunburn. What if, instead, you were stuck in a never-ending winter? You'd probably go insane, and you wouldn't be alone. In 1816, the world experienced the year without summer. People across the northern hemisphere endured an unusually harsh winter, followed by a spring and summer that never quite arrived. Crops froze in the ground. Starving families fled their homes. And in the midst of the global cooling, Mary Shelley wrote Frankenstein. It all began 2 years earlier, in 1814, when Mount Tempora, located in the Indonesian island of Sumba, erupted. It was the most violent eruption in recorded human history. Ash and gases billowed high into the atmosphere, blocking out the sun and cooling the planet. When Shelley was writing Frankenstein, she had no idea about the real-life monster that was causing these conditions. But the story still reflects the chaos and horror of the era. So how does one prepare for a year without summer? The answer is you don't. There's no survival guide for when the seasons go haywire. All you can do is try to adapt and hope for the best. When winter lasted longer than usual, people assumed that spring would come early the following year, so they waited. But as the weeks passed, the temperatures continued to drop. By April, newspapers were reporting that the cold was unbearable. People struggled to stay warm in their homes. Food and water froze. Farmers worried that their crops would die in the unseasonable cold. But still, there wasn't much they could do. As the year wore on, the growing season slipped away, and with it, the hope for a bountiful harvest. Families who grew just enough food to sustain themselves were better off than those who planted cash crops like wheat or cotton. For them, the financial struggle meant finding new sources of food. And when that failed, mass starvation loomed. People started to flee areas that could no longer sustain them. In Switzerland, the government opened soup kitchens to feed the starving, but within months, the supply of firewood needed to cook the soup ran out. Soon, the soup kitchens had to close. Thousands of refugees crowded into Swiss cities, desperate for food. Some resorted to eating grass and sawdust. Others made the grisly decision to eat the dead. Conditions were so dire that some Swiss families sold their children to wealthy foreigners who could afford to take care of them. Some people simply vanished from their homes, presumably having succumbed to the cold and hunger. While the northern hemisphere froze, people near the equator fared much better. In fact, 1816 was the hottest year on record in some parts of South America. In present-day Venezuela, the sun beat down on starving villagers. Torrential rains turned the earth to mud, destroying whatever crops the people managed to plant. When cholera arrived, it spread like wildfire. Within a few months, it killed more than a quarter of the population. Though we tend to think of the 1800s as a time of great scientific advancement, it was really a time of great scientific guesswork. People didn't understand the causes of the cooling or what to do about it. In an effort to fix the problem, some scientists suggested that people should cover themselves in a protective oil while outside. Others suggested wearing 2 shirts to keep warm. Of course, these ideas didn't work. Some blamed the cold on a mysterious substance called caloric, which they believed was making the sun's rays ineffective. To combat this, they proposed lighting massive quantities of camphor and other substances on boats and releasing them into the atmosphere. Others thought that if they could just dredge up enough mud from the bottom of the ocean, they could block the flow of cold water coming up from the depths. Both plans, unsurprisingly, were rejected. Today, we know that none of these theories were correct. The cooling was caused by Mount Tambora's eruption, but at the time, people had no way of knowing that. All they knew was that something was terribly wrong. And as the bodies piled up and the crops froze in the ground, they searched for solutions to a mystery they didn't even understand. Thanks for watching. And if you liked this video, be sure to like and subscribe.